One of my favorite stories related to white supremacy is about this guy named Craig Cobb. Craig Cobb, I interviewed him on the program. He was one of these guys who wants a whites only community, I think in one of the Dakotas. And I interviewed him, and it was a total gong show of an interview. And he accused me of kike wordsmithing. That was sort of a key phrase that came out of the interview with Craig Cobb. He later went on some TV talk show, and they did one of those DNA tests. Like I did one of these with Ancestry.com, and they ran a DNA test for Craig Cobb, and it turned out that he was like 14 or 15% black, I think the number was. And of course, he said, oh, it's a completely bogus DNA test. So with him, his ideas didn't change, but it turned out that his identity was at a bit of a conflict with his ideology. I have a new story that's along these same lines, and it's just as interesting. There's a white supremacist who has been involved in, I think they call it the movement, for decades, who has come out as a gay Jew. I'm talking about Kevin Wilshaw, who announced that he's leaving white supremacy. And not only that, he announced that he is a gay man. And of course, LGBT individuals are typically hated by these extremist groups. And that's not altogether shocking, actually. Wilshaw said that there's a number of LGBT individuals within the white supremacy movement. And yes, he does see it as a contradiction. There's actually a particularly well-known case. It's totally unrelated to Wilshaw. There was a guy named Nicky Crane, a British neo-Nazi activist who came out as gay before dying actually of AIDS-related illness in 1993. So Kevin Wilshaw, longtime white supremacist, he says he's actually gay. But not only that, he also has announced that he has Jewish heritage, which is another group that obviously is hated by these extremist groups. It turns out that Kevin Wilshaw's mother was part Jewish, her last name Benjamin, and he has been speaking out against Jews about just how terrible and bad Jews are for decades. And now he says that, he doesn't see Jews as this sort of nameless, amorphous group. He really has no choice but to see Jews as people. And he is removing himself from the movement. So first things first, anyone that separates from these movements, from these groups, should be applauded. That's a really good thing. But once again, and I've been talking about this now for some time, the fact that people only realize the error of their bigoted and totally discriminatory ways when it personally hits them is a real concern to me, because it should not be that difficult for members of society to realize, even if I'm not personally affected by this, it's bad. It's bad because I have some sense of empathy for other people. And we talked about this after the Las Vegas shooting, when some country music guitarist, I believe it was, came out and said, I've been a longtime advocate of more guns in more places and the Second Amendment and blah, blah, blah. But it took this event to make me realize that I've been on the wrong side of that. Anytime someone changes their opinion for the better, for the more logical, for the more empathetic, that's a good thing. But what's happening in society that it takes a personal incident to realize that your views are destructive, discriminatory, and really damaging to people all over the world? Is it that difficult to just treat people the way you'd like to be treated? Apparently it is.